Oh man, welcome to another episode of the Recession podcast by yours truly, Jeezy. Today, I have a very special guest. I heard about you through one of my friends. He was like, "Do you realize what he's doing in media right now?" He was sending me clips, and I was like, "Yo, what's going on here?" Like, I'm trying to figure it out, but it was everybody was saying you was on to something. And I started doing my research. And when I did my research, I said, makes a lot of sense. He's from Detroit, so I could see this. So we'll go back there in a second. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the Recession podcast, and I have the one and only comedian, music mogul, television producer, philanthropist, founder and chairman, CEO of Entertainment Studios, Byron Allen, with us today. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we had to get you on this podcast, man, because it seems like you're doing some really big things when it comes to media out there, and I just want to talk to you about a few things, just all in all. So when I heard the things that you was doing, I was intrigued. I was like, wow. So we can go back to forth to back, but I got you for a little time. So I want to paint the picture for the people that's out there listening, so they can understand Detroit. Growing up in Detroit, what was that like, and how did that lead you to be a media mogul?
All right. Well, listen, we can go back to the beginning in Detroit, but I would say, look, the media landscape is the ownership is diverse.
Okay.
You have all faith and colors and shapes and sizes that own and run media in America. And what I have found that people in media are very good people, very gracious and very liberal and lean together and want to collaborate.
Mm.
So no matter what the race or religion or happens to be, I have found that it's something that's very inclusive and very collaborative and very respectful. And I think
Mm.
you've seen over the decades, especially even people of color, do very well in the media industry. So you watch, like you mentioned, whether it's Berry Gordy, who was dominating music in the 60s and the
Right.
70s for that part.
Right.
What I have found is that, my experience has been in this media space is that it's a lot of good people who lean in and really don't bring the issues that maybe some of the other um, um, industries may face. But our diversity is something that's our strength, something that
Mm.
I'm proud of. Um, I have found pretty much every community to be very supportive of me,
Mm.
especially and including the Jewish community, or whether
Mm.
it's the Italian community
Right.
or the Hispanic community,
Them all.
Asian, all of them.
Right.
All of them have been really beautiful and kind and inclusive because I find that this business tends to attract people who are just good-hearted people who lean in and are very collaborative, and they're attracted to creativity.
Got
And
it.
I think that we um, can always do well when we, open our hearts and our minds, our souls, and say, how can we work together? How
Right.
can we how can we collaborate together?
That's the
And I
goal.
think, and when you come with people with that type of with that kind of openness, I think that a lot can be accomplished, and that is what's been my experience on the nearly 60 years on this
Wow.
planet.
Wow.
Whether it was, whatever, Asian, Jewish, Hispanic, Arabic, my experience has been all doors have been open, all arms have been open, and everybody has been like, how can we make greatness together? And
Love it.
very and
I
very
love it.
and I'm very appreciative of that. Um, I cannot tell you how many people have opened doors for me. My mentor was a guy who one of the best in the business. He created Entertainment Tonight, Star Search, Lifestyles Rich and Famous, Solid Gold. He's forgotten more about television than most people will ever know.
And
He happens to
who
have
we
been,
speaking about?
his name is Al Messini, and he
Okay.
happened to have been Italian, and
Got
he
it.
was a second father to me. And and I have to honestly tell you, I don't think he ever saw my skin color. He
Mm.
was one of those guys who just embraced me.
Right.
I had a lot of white guys who opened up major doors for me and even told me that they knew about the racism that I was facing, and they stood with me and stood by me to say we won't stand for that. And I can't even begin to talk about the amount of Jewish people who have gone out of their way and have supported me
Mm.
enormously and have opened up many doors for me and have done a great deal. I've found all communities to be loving and embracing and supportive. And I just think that people recognize that goodness in you, and they want to go out of your way to see that you have good success.
Got it.
And I don't think I don't want anybody to ever have that misnomer or feel like a certain group of people, control something. I think what and when it comes to content and creativity, I don't think anybody can control anything. I think that that's just one of those things where you have to really show up with just an openness in your heart, embrace people, and I find that people will embrace you. That's been my experience.
Right.
And I was born in 1961 in Detroit, Michigan, in April of
Yes,
61.
sir.
And I was born without civil rights. And
Mm.
my mother got pregnant with me when she was 16 years old, and she had me when she was 17. So I was born to a black teenage girl in Detroit, Michigan, without civil rights.
Wow.
And for me to achieve what I have achieved, a lot of people have been phenomenal to me, and from pretty much every circle and every walk of life. And
We gotta give you your roses while you're here, brother, because it sounds like you've been through it. I mean, hats off to you. Hats off to you. And let me further elaborate too. Like for me, um, just coming from where we come from, I'm watching what you do, and it's a unique space for somebody that can come from Detroit, move to Los Angeles, and carve this thing out for yourself. And I'm reading that you was a comedian first, so I'm trying to put that with how did you pivot into the entrepreneurial space because it's two different worlds.
yeah, I learned early on it's business show, not show business.
Mm. Like
And
hold up one more time. Business show,
it's not show
not.
business.
I
And
like that. I like
you
that.
want to learn the business part.
Right.
And you want to learn the business part. And then when you learn the business part, you can do as many shows as you would like.
Whoa,
And
that's
and I
big.
think and
That's
I think
big.
that and I think a lot of people they approach it differently. They approach it as show business,
Right.
and they want to shine, and they want the bling.
Mm.
And for me, it's not about the shine, it's not about the bling, it's about the business. And if
Right.
you approach it from a business point of view, you will have all the shine you want and all the bling you want. I don't happen to be into that.
Right.
I
Right.
don't even have a watch. you
Really?
know,
You just look at your phone to tell the time.
my phone tells me the time,
Yeah,
and
it's all the same.
it's all the same. And and I can only use one car, and my car is an SUV, so I can get
Right.
my kids to school.
Right.
I got an SUV, so I can drive my kids to school, and
Right.
I don't have any diamonds. And
I
I'm not
love it.
interested in any diamonds or
I
any
love it.
gold or
I
any
love it.
bling, and I'm not interested in a collection of cars.
Right.
I tell you, a friend of mine, I have friends who collect cars, and I said, look, I don't collect cars, I collect real estate.
Wow. Hey, listen, I'm right there. I love that.
Right?
That's another quotable right there.
Real estate, cars and all that other stuff that goes down in value.
Yes.
What
Yes.
I want,
Depreciating.
yeah, I want young people out here to be fascinated by your real estate and not your bling, because your
Mm.
bling is temporary and then it will go away. I was just very fortunate. I've always
Right.
thought that way and saw it that way. And I think that I was really fortunate early on. I learned not to to, I learned not to do anything other people were trying to quit.
So
So
you learned not to do
anything,
anything.
I never picked up the habits that other people were trying to quit.
Right. So if it was smoking, you wasn't doing no
I
smoking.
never
If it
started
was
smoking. I never
overspending,
started smoking. I
right.
never started drinking alcohol. I never
Wow.
started doing drugs. And so I was really fortunate that I didn't develop those habits.
Where do you
And
think that came from?
I was fortunate that I noticed other people were having problems with their smoking, with
Okay.
their alcohol, and with their drugs. And I just said, life is challenging enough.
Right.
Life is tough enough
Right.
that I learned early on that you have to make sure you don't do anything to make it more difficult for yourself.
Well, I feel better because I had to I came up in an era where I learned from my uncle's mistakes. People in my neighborhood that was a little older than me. I was like, I don't feel like I want to do that. And as I started to evolve, I felt kind of crazy because it was like I would tell people things like that. I'd be like, yo, I don't really, you know, even being an artist and that being a part of the mystique. I used to be like, yo, I'd rather buy some buildings, and I used to tell my son all the time, it's like, yo, I'd rather go buy these buildings and have this real estate. And he look at me and be like, Dad, but everybody knows you for that. And I'm just like, nah. And it's crazy because I hear you talk about that with so much confidence and so much certainty. And I want everybody out there listening, because when I was making those decisions to make those changes, I felt like I was by myself. Like part of the cool crowd, and it was hard because I was used to being the cool guy, and when I was like, you know what, I want to back down, from this, and I don't want to spend unnecessary money on that, and I'd rather, take my money and travel and see the world rather than, just to mess it off here and there, and when I started making those changes, it was hard because that's all I knew, but I also felt like I was, you know, being kind of like put on the outskirts of what was going on as far as the culture, because it's like that's what they know. So my thing is like, like that certainty you had, like where did it come from? Like, because it sounds like you knew this coming out the box. Like this is not nothing you had to think about. You're like, you know what? I'm not smoking, I'm not drinking, and I'm not overspending. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? So,
exactly. I'm not doing the drugs.
right.
It's really about wanting to unleash your greatness.
Mm, love
And
that.
you can't unleash your greatness if you're doing things to deter you.
Mm,
I was really fortunate, once again, what we were talking about earlier, I was really fortunate. I was raised in a very integrated neighborhood
it,
and,
and this
and,
in LA or this in Detroit?
and in Los Angeles.
Okay, got it, got
And,
it.
and, and, once again, my friends were the entire spectrum from A to Z. And it's great because you really get to know one another. And it was really a key background for me to be from a very integrated community and a very integrated neighborhood.
Mm,
And I got to learn a lot from a lot of different folks and a lot of different cultures. And
wow,
I'm really fortunate to have that exposure. And I got to see just a lot of perspectives and a lot of goodness being raised in such a strong, integrated, diverse community. You
wow,
know, you know, I am a firm believer that greatness does come from diversity. When I think about, when I even think about the civil rights movement, right? I think about the civil rights movement and that, listen, as Black people, that was not done alone.
right.
The civil
It,
rights
it
movement,
took outside, yeah,
it,
yeah,
it, it took a lot of
yes,
support from
yes,
good white people,
right,
a lot of great Jewish people. I mean, I
right.
think, quite frankly, I think the Black community owes the Jewish community a
Mm,
huge debt of gratitude because of how much the Jewish community
mm,
leaned in
mm,
to support us during the civil rights movement.
wow.
Uh,
This is something I never known that.
Absolutely. The Jewish
Right,
community was with the Black community in a huge way and has been since day one in terms of civil rights.
wow,
There's a photo that hangs in my office where, because Martin Luther King asked for all of the religious leaders to go with him across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And there's that bridge where the rabbi is standing right next to him.
right.
And there's a lot of, strength in our diversity, and a lot of people leaned in on us, whether it was economically or whatever it may have been. We owe a huge debt to a lot of folks and a lot of cultures who have really stood by us
Right.
and fought for us and fought
Mm.
with us,
Mm.
whether it was in the streets or
Okay.
in the school room, the boardroom, or the
Boardroom. Yeah.
corridor.
It's
And that has been the entire spectrum, from from white, Jewish, to
right.
you name it. Like, we didn't do it by ourselves, and you
Right.
can't do anything
What
by
about yourself?
yourself. You need friends, you
Right.
need extended
Right.
family, you need allies, and you need it in your everyday life. And I've always said, it's important that you love and embrace everybody, and you expand it out, because that's how you're going to have your greatest success.
It's crazy
And
that you
and
said
it's the right thing to do.
it's crazy you said that the diversity because the first thing I thought about when you said that the diversity in your neighborhood and it just gave you an open mind. Um, Even in my personal life, I came from humble beginnings. I did grow up in the hood. I went through that whole thing, but by chance, my father was in the military, so off and on, I was able to move out of the neighborhood and go with my father for periods of time. And one of my trips I can recall was when I went and lived with my father in Japan, and it opened me up to so much culture and just how the world worked. And I mean, I did everything from and people don't even know that about me. Like I'm a professional with chopsticks. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can't tell me nothing about sushi that I don't know. But I pride myself on being open minded because of that once in a lifetime experience that I got to see what a whole nother culture lived like, and that just opened me up to just research other cultures and understand how other people move and get some a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And I think that's why I was able to, go farther than the norm because I knew there was another world out there. So I definitely agree with you that you need, more than just your surroundings. You need other people. So that diversity definitely put me in a different space in life. So I definitely feel
you
you
gotta
on that.
you gotta open up your world, and you gotta
Like that.
really know and embrace folks and learn from a lot of folks. And you know um once again, there was a book that was written. Let's just talk about racism, and let's just talk about unique experiences and how closely we are aligned,
Mm,
and how we are as Black people, how we are closely aligned with the Jewish community, and how the Jewish community is a major supporter of the Black community, and we must be the same of the Jewish community.
okay.
I'll give you a great example of something that a lot of people don't think about. There was a book written in 1916 called The Passage of the Great Race. In 1916, this book was written. And it was written by a young, wealthy, well educated young white man named Madison Grant. And Madison Grant wrote this book, and he didn't like the immigration that he was seeing in New York. He
Right.
was living in New York, and he went to a very, he went to, an Ivy League law school, and he was a lawyer. And this was an educated young man, and he wrote this book, and he did not like the immigration he was seeing in Manhattan. And he
Okay.
wrote a book, and the book was The Passage of the Great Race, and it was basically keep America white and
Mm,
pure. Keep America white and pure, and stop the immigration of folks out of Europe into this country. And this book took off. And
wow.
this young man read this book, and this young man read this book, and this young man said, this book is my Bible," was his quote. Like, this book is basically, he was saying, the greatest book he had ever read. And
Right.
this young man said, "This book is my Bible." And that young man was Adolf Hitler.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
That
That's
young
deep.
man was, okay, 1916. That young man was Adolf Hitler. So not only did America create this racism,
Mm,
we perfected this racism and
mm.
exported it all the way to Europe. And unfortunately, it came back as the Holocaust.
Wow.
Okay. Written by a young white man in America. Okay. So Hitler gave an interview to the New York Times, and Hitler said to the New York Times, paraphrasing, I don't understand why, America's giving me so much attitude, basically, was what he was saying.
Right.
He said, everything I learned about immigration control,
Came from America.
I learned from America. And he thought America was going to partner with him to conquer the world. And he, bless you. And that's why he read that book and thought this was his connection to America. Let
Mm.
me tell you how closely we are aligned with the Jewish community and the trials and tribulations. Hitler sent his Nazi lawyers to America and said, study the Jim Crow laws that they're using on the Negroes in America
Mm.
and bring them back and use them on the Jews.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep.
So when I say to you that the Jewish community is our family, that's our family.
Wow. That's deep. You just opened my eyes.
Okay.
You just opened my eyes.
When I say to you that's our family,
Right.
that's our family.
I get it. I
Okay.
get it. I
That
get it.
that's not that's family. That's
Right.
our brother. Those are our brothers and our sisters.
I get it. I
You see
get
what
it.
I'm saying?
No, I totally get it.
That's how closely, like, the passage of the great race. Okay. And Hitler sent his people over and said, what you doing to the Negroes? Drop it over here.
Right.
And their their journey, very similar to ours, whether it's slavery,
Right.
like ours.
Right. Right.
And so when I say, as far as we are concerned, as Black people, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. And you're not my friend, you are family.
Yeah, it is.
Together, and together, we will work together in
Mm-hmm.
partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and we will eradicate the racism, and we will eradicate the anti-Semitism. We will eradicate the hatred, because the moment we become we stop being tribes, because right now we're kind of tribes and
Right.
everybody's practicing their
Right.
tribalism.
Right. Right.
And the moment we get rid of the tribalism
Mm.
and we become one, and we make the tribe the human race, and we become one human race as a tribe, that's the tribe, the human tribe, is the moment we accomplish a slice of heaven
Mm.
right here on earth.
Slice of heaven
Right here
right
on
here
earth.
on earth. I
When
love
we
that.
become one human tribe.
I I
And
I totally agree with you there because I personally think is the lack of knowledge and the lack of information, because listening to you talk, like I said again, clarity. You have clarity on history. I
mhm,
think with us, and as you can see, what just happened over the last 4 months when we was out here marching and fighting for our lives and fighting to breathe and everything that we just went through 4 months ago. If you look now, it's pretty much, people have looked past that and they moved on with their lives. So imagine not being educated on what really happened in the Holocaust to understand. It's the lack of knowledge, and,
yes,
and even with you telling me this, and I love that because that's what it's about, being a leader. And I can tell that's what you really are. For you to spend your time talking about this, is that we have to get the information out to other leaders so that they can educate people and give them knowledge, because that's the problem. The separation is we don't have enough knowledge about each other. If you go back to the history books, even in school with us, I don't even know. Like when all this stuff started happening, I felt ashamed of myself because I didn't even know enough about Black history to understand. All I knew was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and whatever they taught me in school, and that was maybe 60 pages out of a whole book, and you only knew Christopher Columbus and what they wanted to teach you. So when everything started happening, I went back and started looking at all these different documentaries, the name of a slave and all these different things, and it was just like I didn't know we was on the money. I didn't know
Right.
we was actually on the money, like we was the currency. I didn't
Right.
know that people would actually, slaves would be bought and sold, and then when they was able to be free, that somebody can come and say, hey, you did something wrong, or you broke the law, and now you owe me a fine of $200, but you're never gonna be able to pay this off, so now you got to be my slave. And
That's
so,
right.
so all these things, and as a Black man, I kind of felt, I felt like like behooved, like it was mind blowing, because I'm like, I don't know all this stuff. So when I sit here and listen to you talk about us being one tribe, I personally think deep down in my heart is because we don't have the information and the knowledge about each other's background and each other's history. Because when I think about the Holocaust and what they went through, it's a lot similar. A lot of Jewish people died. Their belongings were took. They were put in concentration camps, and you can't tell the average person out here that's walking around these are the things that happen, because they looking at it like, we've been through the most. They're killing us in the street, but that's been 3 months ago. Now ask somebody what happened 10 years ago to us, and 20 years ago to us, and 100 years. They cannot tell you because we don't have the knowledge. It's
You,
crazy.
you have to have that, and you have to understand where it's coming from, and a lot of it is pure hatred, and it's tribalism, and you can start to see the pattern, the rhythms. I call it the 4 Ds. You
4D.
know, the 4 Ds, and whether it's Black people or Jewish people, you see the 4 Ds they put on you,
Okay.
where they dismiss you.
Dismiss.
They just dismiss you, and then
Okay.
and then well, after they dismiss you, and you get a little upset about that, and you say, "Hey, you're not treating it." Then they discredit you,
Discredit.
and then they move on to that 3rd D, which they have to move on to get right with their so-called Christian selves. They demonize you.
Demonize. I knew you was gonna say that. I
And
knew you
if
was
you
gonna say
look
that.
at how Nazi Germany demonized the Jewish faith and the Jewish people, and how America demonizes Black America.
Wow.
And once they get to that demonization, that then they can move on to that 4th and inevitable D. They destroy you.
Wow.
And they have to go through that process.
Wow.
They dismiss you, they discredit you, they demonize
Demonize you
you,
and
and
then
then they
destroy.
destroy you. And they have to demonize you to get
Right.
right with their so-called Christian selves.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you this
So
before.
that's it. You watch that when you see,
Right.
like I say, what's happened with our Jewish family.
Let me
You
ask
see
you this
the
though. Let me ask you
pattern.
this though. Is that
I'm a
is
bob and weave and make sure it doesn't happen to us.
is that why? I mean, I'm just asking because I'm curious, because you opening my ears up here. Like when I go through Jewish communities and I drive through and I see how they're set up, it seems like to me they're a tight knit family. They stick together. They don't really let a lot of people in, and they look out for each other. So they're able to, like, if I'm gonna do this business, I don't mind giving you this loan because I know you're good for it. You're gonna make it back, and it's just like they build each other up in a sense. Is you think that came
I think
from?
I think it's always good, no matter who you are or what group you're part of, to be
Right.
loving and supportive and engaging.
But
But I'm
Right?
I'm
saying,
saying,
do
do
you
you
think
think
that
that
came
came
from
from
them
them
going
going
through
through
what they
what they
went through
went through
as a
as a
people?
Probably.
people?
Yeah. I think any group that's being persecuted,
Right.
obviously, the natural inclination is to stay close to one another, which is a
Okay.
good, smart
And,
human.
bu- and
And
build
build
each
each
other.
other.
But I'm
But I'm
saying
saying
that
that
because
because
And
I'm just
everybody should do that. I mean, like,
but
but
that's
that's
what
what
I'm
I'm
saying.
saying.
Like
Like
for
for
us,
us,
I
I
feel
feel
like
like
that's
that's
the missing Peace.
I think in the Black community we have a great deal of dysfunction
Mm,
in the Black community.
right.
I think we are taught and programmed to not to trust one another, and I think there's a lot of drugs and alcohol and guns and bullets that are conveniently provided to our community.
Mm,
And I think that's a part of the genocide against Black America. To make sure, I mean, Black America is positioned to fail.
right. You almost set up for it.
You are absolutely set
Set
up
up
for
for
failure.
yeah.
You know, I'm going to make. I've always said they kill you in the courtroom, they kill you in the schoolroom,
Yeah.
they kill
Yep.
you in the
Yep.
boardroom
Yep.
long
Yep.
before they
Yep.
kill you in the streets.
Right. Right.
So I think what you see is, I think you see that we are not getting most of our communities a proper education.
Right.
And I think you're seeing that we are not getting access to capital that's not predatory in most cases.
Right.
And you're not, you know, we are positioned to fail. And I think what we have to do in Black America is we have to do what a lot of other communities have done a phenomenal jobs at, is they have made education the number one priority
Mm,
in their community.
right.
And I don't think we have really given our all as Black Americans
Absolutely not.
to make sure that
Absolutely not.
education is the number one
Right.
thing in our community.
Right.
And until we do what other successful communities have done, which
Right.
is make education the number one thing in their community,
Right.
we as Black America will not move to the level we should and can move to. What changed my life is that I was very fortunate that not only is my mother beautiful, she's brilliant. And even though she had me 17 days after her 17th birthday, and you would have to be in you know, really scared as a 17-year-old Black girl having a baby in
Right.
1961 in
Right.
Detroit, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
But we were fortunate. She ended up coming out here to LA, was a 2-week vacation, and we ended up staying here. And she ended up getting into UCLA, and
Wow.
she ended up getting her master's degree in cinema TV production at UCLA.
Wow.
And because she was at UCLA working on her master's degree, she was able to get a job at NBC
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. So she
and
was in the
giving tours.
television. Yeah.
Yeah, and giving
Mm-hmm.
tours at NBC, and then later publicity and marketing. And being at NBC and giving tours, I was able to go to work with her, and because I could not
Mm,
she couldn't afford childcare. And as I waited for my mother to get off work, I was able to watch them tape The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson,
wow.
Sanford and Son with Freddie Prinze, and
Okay.
Chico and the Man with, I'm sorry, Sanford and Son with Red Fox, and Chico and the Man with Freddie Prinze, and the Philip Wilson Show, and the Richard Pryor specials. And I watched them do, you know, George Burns specials, and I watched Brian Gumbel do the local news, and Pat
Wow.
NBC, and Pat Sajak.
All
Brian
this
Gumbel
as a kid.
was the sportscaster, and Pat Sajak was the weatherman. And I was able to watch all of these people make television. But education is what changed the trajectory of our destiny and put us on a different parallel. What I found, you know, I recently went on the road, and what I found was when I went on the road, I was raising a little over $1 billion to buy some companies.
Okay.
And I went to go speak to a couple of hundred, you know, fund managers who manage probably about 10, 15 trillion dollars in capital. So these are the people you go to when you're raising
Mm-hmm.
capital,
Mm-hmm.
to buy acquisitions, to make acquisitions, to buy companies. And what I found was that the brothers and the sisters were in the lobbies in uniforms checking me in. They were security, and there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. But
Right.
when I went up the elevator to talk to the 15 plus trillion in capital to see if I could get them to put $1 billion with me on this particular go around, what I found is there was a lot of young white kids in their 20s and 30s
Wow.
who had gone to really terrific schools. And I
Mm,
would ask them their background, and they had
mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
education, and they had degrees in business, law degrees, business degrees, MBAs, and JDs from really good schools. And that was the difference from us being in the penthouse managing 20 or 30 billion in our
Mm-hmm.
20s and 30s to
Mm-hmm.
being in in the lobby.
Education.
Education. And the only way I can get you out of the lobby, out of a uniform, and that's a noble profession if that's what you want to be, if that's what you want to do. But the only way I can get you out of that lobby and get you into the penthouse where you're making millions of dollars a year and, you know, and managing billions of dollars is education, education,
Wow.
and education.
You hear that, people?
And
Education.
and there's no substitute. Right. And there's nothing that's going to get you around that. And, you know, I think that what I've always thought that we as Black America, what we have to do is say, you know what, whatever, it's 30, 40 million of us in America. What if only 10 million of us put in $10 a month?
Right.
$10 a month, zap my credit card or my debit card or whatever it is.
Right.
10 million of us, that's 100 million a month.
Wow.
That's 1.2 billion a year.
Wow.
Okay, now 1.2 billion and God willing, 20 million of us do it. That's 200 million a month.
Wow.
That's 2.4 billion a year. Now check this out. So 2.4 billion a year, I'm graduating every Black kid in America through college, debt free. So I'm saying I got you.
Education.
Okay, I got you. So go ahead and I want because I want you to maximize your intellectual capital. And I want you to maximize your intellectual capital because that is how you're going to bring out the greatness in you. And we, as Black people, we have those resources. We have that capability. We have the capital to do that. We have to make it the priority. Now, I had this epiphany. I would go vacation at the same spot, the same hotel year after year for the holidays. And the same families would be at this hotel at the same time. And we would be in the cabanas, at the end, looking out at the ocean. And I became very friendly with a number of the families. And one of the families I became, great, really terrific and great conversations year after year. I'm from LA and they were from another part of the country. And one year, and she and I became friendly. And her name, Mrs. Weissman. And she and I became very friendly because I started talking to her. I noticed her husband had the markings on his arms.
Okay.
And he had been in the Holocaust.
Wow.
And I asked about it. And she said, and we talked about that and we really developed a bond talking over the years. And one year she said to me, I almost didn't make it back here this year to talk to you, to hang out with you. And I always enjoy hanging out with you. She's like in her 80s.
Okay.
I always enjoy our conversations.
Right.
And I said, why? What are you talking about? How come you didn't almost make it back here? She says, well, I've been having problems with my heart. And nobody wanted to operate on this little old lady. And she said, everybody turned me down because they thought I was going to die on the operating table and they didn't want to open me up. So she said, everybody said, no way I'm going to operate on this little old Jewish lady. Right? That's what she said to me. She said, so my son said to me, well, mom, why don't you call Mike? She goes, little Mikey? She said, yeah. She goes, your friend little Mikey, who I used to make cookies and milk for?
Wow, he's a heart surgeon.
And she said, yeah, well, he's not so little anymore, mommy. He's like one of the world's greatest heart surgeons in the hospital.
Wow.
And so she said, so I called him up and I said, hey, little Mikey, I'm sorry to bother you, but this is Mrs. Weissman and I'm having a problem with my heart and they don't want to operate on this little old Jewish lady. Just wanted to see if you had any advice. And he said to her, I want you to email me your records right away. And so she said, no problem. And her son sends the records off to him. And he calls her back right away. And he says, I want you to get on the next plane smoking. You come to me. I'm gonna perform surgery on you tomorrow.
Wow.
She gets
Wow.
on the next plane. He does the surgery,
And she's on vacation.
and she lives. Her pipes are better than ours.
Wow.
Her pipes are better than ours
Little
now.
Mikey does it again, baby.
Little Mikey does it again. And she's sitting there telling me that story.
Mm,
And it pretty much brought me to tears. It's like you realize how precious life is.
absolutely.
And it just showed me like how powerful education is. Thank
Absolutely.
God little Mikey
Absolutely.
realized his potential,
Yes.
right? Little Mikey realizing his potential saved Mrs. Weissman. Little
Absolutely.
Mikey realizing his potential and not getting caught up in gangs or
Right.
drugs or alcohol or going in and out of jail, but rather having an education is actually positioning little Mikey to save
Lies.
you
Right.
and save other lives, to
Right.
find a cure for something that may take you out or your loved ones.
Right.
I think, as a matter of national security, everybody should be educated to the fullest for free, just as a matter of national security, just
Right.
for the quality of life.
Life. Yeah.
I think, as a matter of national security, it needs to be free because we don't have enough intellectual capital. And if you haven't maximized your potential,
Right.
no disrespect, you become a liability
Ability. Yeah.
because
Because
we're subsidizing you,
and they're gonna
and
use
we
it.
have to.
They're gonna use it against you.
Well,
If you
we're subsidizing you because you haven't maximized your potential,
right.
and we need to invest in you
Right.
to maximize your potential to be an asset, not a
Not a
liability.
liability. And I love that you said that because I want to take it a step back further before I get sidetracked. You said something in the beginning, and you said something now about education that clicked. I had an epiphany.
Yeah,
You said something in the beginning about you having one SUV, not being in the bling, not being in none of these things. You don't need a bunch of designer to to validate who you are. And then you went on to say that you feel like education is the key. Now,
education.
yes. So for the last couple of last maybe like couple of years, I really been in my head about what type of money I've spent on things, and I just had something recently come up where I had to put the culture first, and I wanted my culture to understand. So even if you look at the election that just happened, they had to credit the African American community for stepping up and coming out and voting this time. But if you look at these billion-dollar companies outside of media, we're talking fashion and watches and all these different brands and all this stuff. We make these people billions and billions of dollars that we go out here and risk our lives and do all these crazy things to get this capital, and then we go put it into these things because we feel like that it makes us better as people. So whoever it is, whatever brand you have to support, but you're basically taking your hard-earned money, things you risk your life for, your freedom, and you're pointing into somebody's pocket for them to put their kids through school, the best schools, to set their kids up with trust funds and to be okay. But then you won't take that same capital, that same money to invest in yourself and your children so that you guys will have the best education. And that brings me to this point. Um, because I just recently dropped the album and I had a song entitled The Almighty Black Dollar. I wanted my people and my culture to see that our dollar is almighty. You just said if you got you said how many people to put
10 million.
$10 in, a
Yeah, 10
million people
million.
to put $1 million,
10 bucks,
and we
10
can
bucks each. That's a
so
billion.
a
Yeah, that's
billion
100 million
dollars,
a month. That's a billion to a year.
a billion to a year. And how many kids did you say can go to college?
You pretty much take care of most of, pretty much at 2.4 billion a year. Pretty much you take care of all the black kids in college, and you get into
All the black kids, like literally.
yeah, like they're in school. I mean, you could
Right,
take like 2.4 billion. You taking care of, and that's the other issue. You have a lot of black kids who are not really leaning in
right.
because they don't think they're like, why should I lean in?
But let me say this before we go. Why should I lean is the same thing I said when people started talking about why should I vote. because it matters. Every
That
little
it
bit
matters.
matters.
That's right.
Matters.
But a lot of black kids are thinking, why should I lean in? My family doesn't have the money to get me through college.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Got it.
So
Got it.
if you're able to, it's a mental mindset if black kids know that my college is going to be paid for because
Mm,
Black America has put the money in for me,
right.
and now I'm going to be taken care of. Black America has it. We don't need to be saved. We can save ourselves. And the thing
Mm,
about Black America, what we have to understand is don't work for your money. Let the
let your
money
money
work
work for you.
for you. Right?
And
And, and,
it's
and a lot of, and so what's happening is a lot of black people are getting pimped by money, and you got to pimp your money
right.
because
When you
you
say
are,
pimp by money, explain
you
that.
know, you getting grinded down,
Okay.
working 2-3 jobs a
Mm,
week. You feel like you can't. That's not sustainable. So you can make money. You have to take money and invest it. I'll tell you this: last year, if you invested whatever you invested in, I'm going to call it $10,000. And I'm not saying everybody has 10,000. I'm
that's
just
right.
using it for easy math.
That's right.
Okay. But if you invested $10,000 in 8 stocks last year, January 1 to December 31 of last year,
8 stocks.
eight stocks,
Okay.
Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, AT&T, Microsoft, and Disney. Those 8 stocks last year would have given you a 42% return on your money.
Mm,
So if you put it in January 1, 10 grand, you would have come back a year later, January 1 the following year, and it would have been 14,200 bucks. You would have made $4,200 for doing nothing
nothing. Nothing.
other
But
than getting
is it
other than getting
patience
up the
thing though?
breathing. Huh?
Is it the pay? I'm one to believe is when you're mental, and that's why I want to talk about the power of the black dollar. When your mental is trained to, okay, I'm gonna buy this because I'm gonna some more is coming. I know how to get some more. It seems like to me it's hard to get somebody to look for the long haul and the
Yes.
slow steady money because it is steady and the immigrant mindset to me works better with that because immigrants that come here from another country and they won't spend a dime. They'll
Well, they're
put in
investing. They're investing, and
right,
they're investing,
right. They
and they're
put their
coming here
right,
because they're seeing an economy that is the greatest economy in the world.
right.
This America is the greatest country in the world. We're not perfect. We have our flaws. We are the greatest country in the world. Nothing's perfect. We have the greatest economy. We have the greatest pathway to wealth,
Mm,
and you can invest, and you have a financial system that is, you don't have to worry about waking up one day and for the most part your capital is stolen. So
right.
they're investing, and they are being smart about that. We have to invest, and we have to go to the banks, and it's very important to work with the banks to make sure you buy your home, because
So work with the
buy your
banks to make
home,
sure you buy your home.
you're able to get a bank loan to buy your homes, because
Okay.
that's now you're participating in the great appreciation of America, the great wealth appreciation, because the value of your home will go up.
Right.
And as your home goes up, now you have capital to help finance whatever it is, your retirement or the education of your
Mm,
children or your
mm,
grandchildren.
okay.
And you have to buy real estate and just understand you're buying it, and the goal is never to sell it. The goal is to pay it off and pass it on,
Okay. It's for generational wealth.
to start creating generational
Generational
wealth,
wealth. Yeah.
pay it off and pass it on.
Right.
And so, when white people die, most of the time they get assets.
Right.
When black people die, most of the time we get bills.
Bills, and that's if you can pay for the funeral.
It's just bills, right?
You know
So
what I'm
we have to,
saying? Like
we
it's
have
if
to
you can pay for
change that.
right,
And the thing about, and what I will say, always say, that as black people, we don't have wealth. We have what I call, from time to time, decent cash flow.
mm,
So you'll have black entertainers and athletes, they'll come along and they'll have a good 4 or 5 year run.
okay,
And they may make, 100 million or 200 million bucks in that 5 year run because they're hotter than hot.
right,
But that's not wealth. That's good cash flow. Wealth is when you have 3-4 billion dollars, and you make 500-600 million a year off your $3 or $4 billion.
Talk
Talk
that
that
talk.
talk.
Okay, that's wealth.
Talk that talk.
When you got 3 billion plus in cash
Right.
invested, and it's
Right.
making 600 million a year for you, and you're making over 2 million a day simply because you got out of bed and you have
Right.
money working on
Right.
behalf. So that's wealth
Mm.
versus, hi, I got a good 10-20 million a year coming in.
Right.
That's cash flow. You got to get to wealth where
Right.
you have billions and billions of dollars, and the
Dollars.
billions is invested, and
Right.
it's making 700 plus
And,
million a year for
and
you.
I want to clarify that because that was the key part. You said not having just a couple of $1 billion, but the $1 billion, the couple of billion you have are invested.
To generate
Correct.
700 million a year,
Wow.
600 million a year,
You
and then
talking that
and
talk
then
right now. You
now
you
you
got you
make
got you got my seat warm over here. I'm
well,
like
yeah, 'cause now
My
you
blood is boiling. I'm like, okay, this is
this
the
is the
conversation I
conversation I
need
need
to
to
right.
have.
So,
have.
yeah, like so you before you get that bling, and before
Right.
you buy this or you buy that,
Right.
let's get to the 3 billion of what I call your foundational wealth
Mm.
that's sitting there, and it's invested. And
Right.
now it doesn't matter what you do. Like every day you wake up,
Right.
you make it a couple of million a day.
Couple
Every day,
million a
a
day
day. Every day you wake up
doing nothing.
doing nothing because your money's invested. Now, that's white wealth. There are
Mm.
plenty of white families in this country that have those types of investments, and they are making literally billions every year off the billions they already have. That's
Wow.
wealth. Now, what we have as Black people, we don't have wealth, we have good cash flow.
Mm.
From time to time, you have a good
So how
five.
does one get from good cash flow to wealth?
You
What's that
take that,
path
and
like?
that's a great question. You take that cash flow and you don't spend it. You you invest it, and you
Right.
keep investing it. And then one day you're going to look up, your investments are so vast that you're like, hey, I'm making 10, 20, 30 million a year off my investments.
Mm.
Now you start to breathe.
Okay.
Now you started. So we should be saving our money, watching our pennies. But whatever you do, you're never going to change your trajectory until you invest,
Right.
until you buy that house. And you beat up the bank on that interest rates. Always keep challenging
And
them
and
on
now was a good time because the interest rates are low.
interest rates are low. Like
Right.
this is about you're as close to free money as you gonna ever get.
Right.
Everybody should be buying their home, and they
Mm.
should be cherishing their home and cherishing their community and investing in their communities.
Mm.
And you should be investing in long term in the stock market because you have one of the greatest economies and the best brands in the world, and the best managers in the world.
Right.
And if you look at the Forbes 400 list and the 400 richest people in this country, they are pretty much, their wealth is sitting in the stock market, and it's somewhat in real estate. But a lot of them may own large blocks of stock in some of the best brands in the world.
Right.
Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and AT&T and Microsoft and Disney are just some of the few.
And this is where that knowledge comes into play again. I just feel these are the conversations because just imagine how many black kids, even me, when I grew up, I thought if I had $1 million, I was rich. I mean,
If you have a
that was
million
it.
dollars,
It
I
was
just let me
game
be
over.
really clear. If you
Right.
have $1 million, you broke as hell.
Right.
You are,
Hold on,
you are,
hold on, wait. Say that again. If you have $1 million, you what?
you are broke as hell. You are a broke Negro.
Damn.
Let me just be really clear. And I'm just gonna be real clear with you because it's not. Where you going with that? You gonna wake
Right.
up one day and that's gonna be gone.
Gone. Right.
You're
Right.
like, no,
Taxes. Yeah.
it's
But
gone.
but what I'm saying is like it's so important for people like yourself to spread that knowledge because we work hard. Like like as a culture, we're very we can make something out of nothing. But we
Yes.
have a glass ceiling because the people before us have laid it out. Okay, well, wealth is a couple cars, or
Yeah.
some nice jewelry, a nice place to stay, and you travel. So, and if you look at Instagram and how it's set up, you just seeing everybody's highlight reels, and it makes anybody that's an entrepreneur, somebody get to a certain point, feel like if I don't have those things, I'm not successful. And I on the other hand, I'm like you, is like I'm going in these rooms, and when I hear and when I come back and tell my friends and partners like about these conversations and these $1 billion mindset you have, it sounds so far fetched. It's like graduating college when you ain't even in elementary yet. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh my God, I don't even want to think like that. And to me, I just feel like we got to have these conversations because we have to break the glass ceiling. You
Yes.
know, we have to understand these things are possible and they're out there. And not only that, you have people that have achieved this and understand this like the back of their hand. And it's like if we don't build generational wealth, like my grandfather didn't leave anything for my dad, and my dad didn't leave. You know what I'm saying? My whole mission is to make sure that my kids are gonna be good and they're set up in a way that they understand how things work and not what the general public thinks. Okay, they're my kids; they should have everything. No, that's not. Great education. You know, they should have the trust fund. They should have their properties that I've been invested in over the years, and they should have outlets and resources because going to those schools and being in that little community, they're gonna have friends there that grow up and be bankers. They grow up
That's
and
right.
be real estate agents. They grow up and
That's
be
right.
all these different things that they're gonna have in their community, and that's the thing that I'm trying to give to the culture. But it's hard because it's like it seems so far fetched, and to hear you talk about it with so much certainty, I'm like, yo, I got to reevaluate how I'm thinking because it's like, that's real. I want to wake up and I ain't got to get out my bed either. I'm gonna
Right.
roll over, put on my house shoes, and check that bank statement, and be like, well, you know what? Actually, you know,
Exactly. And that's very possible. And we
right,
have like we can't have our HBCUs struggling.
right.
Black
That's
America,
real. That's
that's
real.
on
That's
us.
real.
Black
That's real.
America, that's on us. We
Right.
need to, and we need to invest. And by the way, it hasn't been done. I want to publicly thank Michael Bloomberg,
Okay.
who donated $100 million to educate Black medical students in this country.
Wow.
Okay, we as Black Americans, we have to celebrate that and thank you, Michael
Absolutely.
Bloomberg.
Shout out to Michael, baby.
Michael
That's what
Bloomberg,
I'm talking about. Hats off, brother.
for that, right? We have to thank folks. Like that's real talk. Like we as a society have to acknowledge the ones who are loving us and supporting us and showing us the way, and we have to lean in and say, look, we're not going to let Black people. We're not going to let the HBCUs struggle.
Right.
We're not going to let them struggle,
Right.
and we're going to donate. And
Mhm.
we're not going to let, and we're going to make sure that our schools and our communities as parents, yeah, it may be a public school, but we have resources to enhance that public school.
Right.
And the one thing I don't want our Black kids to do, or any kid in America, is to graduate from college and be a debt slave.
Right.
I don't want you to go, I don't want you to struggle
Right.
to achieve, your education. I
Right.
want you to get that without breaking sweat. And I want you to come out of college debt free
Right.
because you getting your education, I want you to get your master's, your PhD, because the more intelligent you are, the better we are.
Right.
And if you are not a debt slave, then you are a true consumer.
And
So
you're an
when
asset.
you're an asset and you're a true consumer, because when you get out, you're gonna get that job and you're not worried
Mhm.
about your student loan. You're actually now a consumer. You're gonna go get that house. You're gonna
Right.
get the washer dryer. You're gonna
Mhm.
pick that house up. You're gonna be
Mhm.
now the entire economy has a solid foundation. And what I would love to see is that happen worldwide. And if we can have that worldwide, all that intellectual capital is working together in symphony, and we are able to achieve and eradicate the things that destroy us every day.
Right.
And that's
We're building that
human capital.
you're right. You're building that intellectual capital because you're being educated. That means that you're bringing up everything around you. So it's less violence, it's less drugs, it's less fuckery because now everybody's coming up with you. So there's no.
Everybody's coming up with you. You're able
Mm,
to eliminate that racism, that anti-Semitism,
mm,
that sexism, that ageism. You're able to eradicate the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, the child abuse. You're eradicating all of the demons and all of the evils so we can achieve a slice of heaven right here on earth. And I
Wow.
believe that is really, for me, that is really the true human test of why we're here. And
Wow.
when we achieve that oneness,
Right.
that one human oneness, then we are more like God and we are living more like in God's image. And you will start to see a lot of the evils and the demons go away when we love each other like you are truly my brother. You are
Right.
truly my sister, and I don't care about your skin color or your religion because we are human
And
beings
we are
and
one.
we are one and we are
We
God's
are one.
children and we
Right.
need to succeed together and work together and together we can eradicate anything that's not good for us and we can achieve whatever is good for us.
Let me elaborate on that further. I don't got to call any names. The reason I know you speak the truth, my brother, because I've seen so many people in the position of power try to draw a clear line of separation because that's what's going to keep us demonized.
That's right.
Is
That's right.
divide and conquer.
That's right.
Is put them over there and we over here, and we're gonna let them have all this turmoil and just take themselves out
That's right.
because they can't function.
That's
They
right.
can't function. They don't know how to to live amongst each other. They don't know how to uplift each other. They
That's
should
right.
be over there, and the more that happens, the farther behind we get. So when you hear systemic racism, you hear the wealth gap, all those things have been created, and they're not getting any better because we're not building ourselves up. And I swear, like, it's so crazy we talk about this because I say it all the time with these young guys that come out here and they come out of these ghettos and these places and they get out here and they start making money and they start building building a company, and all of a sudden now the people depending on them, and then you still can fall victim to being killed by one of your own over straight up jealousy, but you was on the verge of being that person that can uplift people around you and they immediately take you out. So the cycle has to start all the way back over again, and it has nothing to do with education. It's like the heart of us as a people is like we're fighters, we want to win, but if
That
that
clear
clear
line
line
of
of
separation
separation
is
is
drawn,
drawn
and we
and we
over
over
here and
here
that
and that
goes
goes
on,
on,
it's
it's
like
like
it's
it's
too
too
many
many
liabilities
liabilities
and
and
not
not
enough
enough
assets.
assets.
You
You
know
know
what
what
I'm
I'm
saying?
saying?
It's
It's
like
like
That's it.
it's
it's
so
so
many
many
liabilities, you know?
liabilities, you know?
Right. And so,
So
and that black on black crime
right.
speaks to our own self hatred and that
Absolutely.
anger and that frustration. And the
Absolutely.
only thing that can eradicate that is education because it
Mm.
gives you hope and a pathway to success. Your
Mm.
success is my success.
Success. Yes.
Okay. Just like Mrs. Weissman's, Mikey's success was
Right.
Mrs.
Right.
Weissman's
Right.
success.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
your success. I have to make sure you succeed. I am
Mm.
here to position you to succeed. I
Mm.
am sharing this information because I want you to do better than me.
Wow.
Okay, because your success will only help me. Okay, I don't want to see people suffer. I don't want
Mm.
to see people not realize their fullest potential.
Right.
You may have the cure. You may have the cure for what's going to take me out.
Right. 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 So we need it all.
I want you to be
Right.
the best of the best. Everybody has greatness in them. Everybody, if you are alive and above ground, you
You
have
have
greatness
greatness.
in
It's
you.
within you. Yes, it's
You
within you.
you
Yes.
were born with greatness.
Yes.
It actually
Absolutely.
exists.
The words of
Now,
Les Brown, baby. That's the words of Les Brown. I know it. I listen to it every morning.
but you have it, and I love Les Brown. I
I
love Les.
love him.
But you have greatness in you, and
Mm.
you have to unleash it. You have to unleash it and not do anything that stands in the way of it. And
Right.
a lot of that is making sure everybody around you is achieving what they want to achieve because their success is going to just be contagious for you. It's going to help you.
and and
You know?
and 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 chime in on that. I know you're absolutely right because as a youngster, I had to like I grew up in single wide trailers, small and everything. But my sister was always very book smart. Like she's brilliant when it comes to books and understanding, reading, and I was just like, I can't get into that at the time because I was in the streets trying to figure it out and take care of my mother. But the one thing I did do that was the right thing, and the reason why I know you speak the truth is I took the little money that I had and helped put my sister through school. And she became an RN, and then she went on to do other things. So she's in the medical field. And she's always been proud of her. Her brother's the rap superstar and the entrepreneur and all that. But when this COVID thing hit, and she was on the front line saving lives, and she was telling me these stories at the end of the day, like, okay, I had to save this many people and that many people, and this happened and that happened. And when my mother got sick, it just her mentality, the way she went about it. And I just sat there and was like, I thought I was the star. She is clearly the superstar. She
Right.
is the one. She is. I ain't saved no lives today. I'm quite sure if I call her, she saved a few. But
Yeah,
to
exactly.
me, that made me feel so real because, like you're right, it's the education. It's the fact that she can go in there and do what she loves to do, which is help people. But if I wasn't in a position to help her get through college so that she can have that, she wouldn't be able to save lives. And I can only imagine how many lives she saved just for the simple fact that she went to college. And we
That's
talk
right.
all the time. And she tells me, brother, you wouldn't believe today I came in there, we had this many people die and this many people live and da da da. And she's explaining it to me, and I'm just sitting there like, you are amazing. Like
That's right.
you are truly amazing. And that education and what I'm getting out of this conversation, what you're telling me is about the education. That's a start. And
Yeah,
once we get educated, we start to get this income and we start to build this wealth, we have to invest.
that's right.
Mm,
Invest. And you
mm.
and you have to and love one second. Hey, honey, hey guys, my kids are in the pool.
Yeah, I already know.
So once and we have to really embrace all cultures
mm,
and love and respect all
mm.
cultures
Compassion,
because
compassion,
everybody we gotta
compassion.
like and I don't like when I don't like when people say tolerate somebody. That's horrible. It's not tolerate. That's
Mm,
not tolerating somebody's barking dog. That's like you have to love and embrace and immerse all cultures and bond and
mm.
appreciate
Right.
because we have to be the leaders of eradicating racism and anti-Semitism because we have the most to gain by
Right. Right.
leading that agenda of
Right.
eradicating racism
Right.
and anti-Semitism because we are the ones who are hunted and killed the most in America.
Right. Right. Right.
So
So so
we have to be the leaders of
mm,
eradication.
mm,
We have to be the ones hugging the most
mm.
and forming partnerships and extending our family. It's the right thing to do. It makes us stronger and it leads the way of just eradicating what
Wow.
is something that really stands in our way. Love is the way. Peace is the way.
Mm,
Education is the way.
mm,
And it's a marathon, not a sprint.
mm,
We can't love enough. We can't hug enough. We can't give enough. We can't lean in enough.
mm.
And we must really embrace and make sure we extend our family to the world.
Right. And I love that lean in comment that you're making. And before I let you go, I want
Yes,
them to hear this one more time.
yes.
If we get you said 1 million people,
If we got 10 million black
10
folks
million black folks, listen, black folks,
to send it,
everybody else too, everybody
and
else too.
by the way, white folks should
Listen.
invite it too. We get, but I was just wanted to say to black
Right, no,
America.
I'm listening. Yeah, like 10 million black
But,
folks.
but how much is inside of our own? Like 10 million black folks sending in $10 a month is 100 million a month.
Okay. A
That's
month.
a month. That's 1.2 billion a year.
One
One
point.
point.
Listen.
Listen, if we
1.2
if we
billion a
don't
year.
get what the almighty black dollar is right here, people, if we
If we
don't
don't
figure
figure
this
this
out,
out, we
we
setting
setting
ourselves
ourselves
back
back
another
another
100 years
hundred years
because
because
if
if
we
we
can
can
afford
afford
all
all
this
this Louis Vuitton and this Gucci and all
Yeah,
these
these
designer
designer
clothes and
clothes
all
and all
these
these
things that
things
we
that we
don't
don't
need,
need,
we can
you don't need it.
invest. We can
Yeah, and
invest.
so and what's happening is I'll say, you can say Black Lives Matter all you want.
right.
You can bitch, moan, and complain all you want.
Right.
But stop with the complaining and the talking. Donate and vote.
Wow.
Donate and vote. Because
Wow.
when you donate, you to something like education, okay, then you are moving your community and your culture to a more successful place, a better place. When you vote, you are protecting your community because you're putting politicians in place who are carrying out your agenda to make sure that you have a pathway to success. And so you have to lean in, and you need to vote always, even in the midterms. You need to vote on everything, on every position, because every position matters, and it will impact the quality of your life. And you need to donate, and you need to donate to your community and to your politicians. We lost the great Queen Stacey Abrams as governor of Georgia because Black America, quite frankly, we didn't lean in and donate money to her. Wow. When she was running for governor of Georgia, I called her up and I said, you may not really know me. My name is Byron Allen, and I'm in LA, and I would like for you to come to Los Angeles because there are a lot of folks who like you, and we can raise a lot of money for you. And will you come here to LA and let me do a fundraiser?
Right.
Just give me a few minutes. Will you come here and let me do a fundraiser for you? Right. And I'm gonna go jump in the pool with them. But will you let me do a fundraiser for you? And she said yes. And she came here, and I partnered with Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg, and we were her second biggest fundraiser for her to run for governor of Georgia in 2019. Wow. But what I really want Black America to do is for Black America to become our own political super PAC. If we say to Black America, I need 2 million of you to send in $10 to Stacey Abrams, she's got $20 million. And now she's the governor of Georgia, and she didn't lose by 1.4%. Our brother Andrew Gillum, he lost governor of Florida by 0.4%. So if we say to 2 million, 3 million Black people send in $10, that's $30 million. He has enough to get in. Our brother, Benjamin, he ran for governor of Maryland, and Ben, he told me he could have gotten there for $10 million. Wow. Well, that's just $1 million of us sending in $10. $10. So we have to, as
mobilize,
Black,
baby, mobilize.
And we have these mobile phones, and we can do that in 1 minute. We have to lean in on our politicians to make sure we get them in. We could have had the governor of Maryland, the governor of Florida, and the governor of Georgia since 2018, and that's positioning us for success. And what we're going to have to do in 2022 is make sure you get somebody like a Val Demings, maybe, as governor of Florida in 22 in Florida. The Queen, Stacey Abrams, governor of Georgia. Yes. And we see what talent we can find. Maybe it's Beto O'Rourke or someone who's a Hispanic superstar that can be, a governor of Texas. And when you have the governor of Texas and Georgia and governor of Florida, now you've positioned Kamala Harris to become the first female president of the United States.
Yes,
because she has support in key states around the country. We as Black people have to think this way: marathon, not a sprint, long-term and strategic. And we have to take our resources and we have to pool them together and make them a priority, that we lean in on our politicians, we lean in on our education. And then what you will find is that we will start to achieve banks that have national charters that go out of their way to lend to African-American families for home ownerships, car ownership, business, and lines of credits, because everybody has cash flow issues, and help the Black community have access to capital that's not predatory. So it's politicians, so we have policies that don't work against us. It's us leaning in on education, and that's the number one priority. and
Right.
then making sure that we have a strong alignment with the financial community so we have access to capital that allows us to invest in ourselves, our businesses, and position ourselves for long-term generational success
Wow.
and family wealth.
Well said, my brother. Well said. That might have been the best part of the interview. It was like, listen, Byron, I've heard of you, brother. I've watched you in some type of way. I feel like we got to become friends somewhere because I feel like you have a lot of what I need, and so we'll make that happen offline. But speaking on behalf of the culture and black men that look up to other black men because they are solid and they have integrity and they move it so. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for stopping by the
And yeah,
Recession Podcast and dropping these gems and jewels. And man,
yeah, just read as much as you can and make friends, as many friends outside of your culture and your circle as much as you can, and truly love and embrace one another and smile. And when you smile, the world will smile back.
there it
Just
is,
smile.
man. Byron Allen, man. Enjoy the pool, brother. We enjoyed you. And we'll link. We'll link some one way or another. I got you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for stopping by the Recession Podcast. And you
Thank
had heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. The almighty black dollar. There it is. Love you, brother.
thank you.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.